Bonjour, bonsoir, dear friends, and welcome to JCB Live Happy Hour. This is a very exciting time because I have a feeling I'm on the racetrack. And why is that? Because we have literally the first woman today who won the IndyCar. This is quite exciting. She is very charming, extremely talented, very quick and witty, and believe it or not, she's as well a fabulous winemaker. As you can see next to me, I have her dream, which will be well explained by her as far as a trademark, which is a fabulous Latin sentence that I love. So, dear friends, I'm excited, thrilled to bring you one of our Napa Valley friend and phenomenal entrepreneur, Danica Patrick. Look at that. Woohoo!
You know how to get the party started.
Well, with you, of course. This is what we do when you win. You see, we do this.
Woo! It's a mess. Oh my God.
So is it what you did when you won that first race? Did you have bumps all over your body?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I've opened champagne a lot more than just that, but hey, I've always wondered, I feel like you would know exactly how to open a champagne bottle. It seems like if I twist really slow, it like somehow neutralizes the fizz and it doesn't pop. Is that true?
That's exactly true. And you could do it both ways. You could hold and turn from the base.
Okay.
You see, this is another trick sommelier do. So you turn it both ways and suddenly you hear psh, and a beautiful psh, like a tower getting flat.
Look at that.
You did it. I'm very impressed. Do you always have such a great touch with the cork?
Magic in these hands.
So, Danica, before we go to wine, we're going to have to ask you, cheers. Before we go to the world of wine, how did you come about loving racing and becoming such a talented driver? Give us a little bit of the story.
Well, yeah, it's I guess an interesting story. It's interesting and it'll come full circle at the end and you'll be like, oh, wow. But at the beginning, my dad just loves racing and has been involved in it since he was a kid. He used to race all kinds of different motorsports. And we were looking to find something to do together as a family to spend more time together. I have a sister, she's 2 years younger, and my mom stayed at home and took care of us, and my dad worked a lot. So something we could spend some time together doing. And I think we're going to buy a boat to go on the, tiny little rock river where we grew up, but that didn't work out. So then they decided, maybe we should buy go-karts. So we went to a friend's house. My sister was actually in the same class with a girl who raced go-karts. Or a family who did. And so they were in our neighborhood. So we went over to their house, looked at their go-karts and bought go-karts. So, but what I love about it is I love setting a goal and achieving it. I love the process. I love hope and aspiration. Like I always love the fact that next year I could do more and then finish better and continue to sort of climb the ladder. And so in the end, I was done because I just felt like I wasn't able to do that. So it wasn't actually racing itself that I loved. It was the parts in it. It was aspects of racing. And so, I can sort of scratch that itch in other ways. And so that's what I'm doing.
This is amazing. So when you're starting the go-karting, you learn the techniques, you learn the turn, the curve. But you started right away to compete, or you just did it casually at first and then competition came because you really had a talent for it?
No, it started right away. It started right away. Like we bought go-karts look, it wasn't my money. But mom and dad bought the go-karts and we went out and raced it was right away. Like we didn't just tool around. We might have practiced a couple times first, but it was definitely all about getting on the track and racing. And we couldn't, my sister and I, because my sister started when I started, we couldn't even keep up on the parade laps when you go really slow. We were that bad.
So everybody can improve, obviously. Here we go.
Exactly. You either have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And definitely I have a growth.
So then from go-karts to Indy, give us the transition, the evolution, because then we'll go from Indy to wine, of course. So you keep going.
That's right. Well, actually, wine threads in much earlier than you'd think then maybe. Thank God I lived in England for a little while and made it legal for at least most of the time I was there. So, I mean, I raced go-karts for about 7 years, and there was an opportunity to go to England and race. And I was told by someone that I could learn more there in 1 year than I could learn in 5 years at home. So I was like, well, if I want to be a race car driver, that sure seems like a really good idea. So, I left school when I was 16 years old, got my GED, and I went to England and started racing. And at that point in time, I thought to myself, Formula One or bust. Right? Because when you're in Europe and you're in England, it's like Formula One's everything. It's Formula One and American and soccer, American football, or soccer, which is here, football over there. Those were the two biggest things. And so along with a couple other boring things like cricket, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah, that's the English.
Yeah. And so I thought to myself, Formula One or nothing, and that I wanted to achieve the highest level. And I had come back to the States and ended up realizing, you know what, I do really well when I'm happy. And when I'm home, I'm happy. And so I came back home, and I luckily I had met the guy who ended up employing me in IndyCar when I lived in England. His name's Bobby Rahal, and he also loves wine. And he was living in England and working on running a Formula One team. So when I came back to the States, he came back at a similar time and had an IndyCar team. And so I put him on the spot about starting a Formula Atlantic series team, which is the step below IndyCars. And he must have had a lot of wine that day because he said, okay.
That's awesome. So what about Formula One? Did it get you excited as well? Because Formula One, Formula Two are really fun. It's like a bigger go-karts of all things, right?
Yeah. I mean, Formula One and IndyCar, I mean, to the layman eye are so similar, right? I mean, they're open wheel cars with wings. When you're in the States, you kind of think IndyCar and NASCAR are the biggest deal, and Formula One's really cool and really elite, but it's not that popular. And so when you're over in England and Europe, I mean, Formula One is definitely the pinnacle of racing. So, I just wanted to be the best, and I wanted to be in the best series.
So as we're drinking more bubbles, because I'd love for you to describe what you feel, what you sense. Tell us about this victory as the first woman ever. I mean, what an accomplishment. I want to drink to that because this is pretty exciting. Thank you.
I was a young girl, but I mean, look, I was so fortunate in my career that I really I had great teams around me so much of the time, and it felt like a long time coming when I finally won in England, to be honest, because I started in IndyCar in 2005 and I won in 2008. And my fourth race in an IndyCar, actually my third race in an IndyCar in Japan, I qualified on the front row and I finished fourth. And then the Indy 500 came next and I qualified fourth and I finished fourth, and I almost won the race, and I almost qualified on the pole as well. So then to wait that many years to finally have won my first race was, felt like it was a long time coming. There's so many other factors that go into it. Once you realize how close you get sometimes, and you think, then you take those and it slips away from you. Then those moments where you catch a break or luck into something a little bit, you go, oh no, I'm taking that too, because I got robbed last weekend. I'm taking the luck this weekend. So, I would have loved to have won more races than I did, but it was so great to do that. And And yeah, I mean, my IndyCar career was really cool, really fun. My NASCAR career was as well, but there was definitely better results in an IndyCar than in stock cars.
Yeah. So tell us about the difference between the two, because I know we have a lot of friends from Europe here and Asia who are more into the traditional Formula One, Formula Two. So give us the contrast, and you as a pilot, the difference between the two.
Between IndyCar and NASCAR?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they look completely different, of course. So IndyCar is open wheel car. It looks much more like a Formula One car. And
Yeah.
then NASCAR is a stock car, and it's not open wheel car because the wheels are not exposed. They're not open. So it's a stock car. It's closed wheel. So, it kind of looks like your regular car. But it's the aerodynamics work very differently. The way you refer to the car works differently. There's a lot of things about a stock car and an Indy car that are really opposite, but the fundamentals, of course, are the same. Like, you're still racing, so you get like a baseline amount of information. But I definitely had to relearn things. Learn new things, learn new ways, and reorient the way I thought about things. Yeah, they're very different. They're very different. Like, let's say the thing that's really weird, I was just explaining this the other day, is that from an aerodynamic perspective, what's in front of an Indy car matters so much. And in a stock car, what's from the driver back behind you is what matters so much. Like, nobody's going to spin you out aerodynamically getting too close in an Indy car, really. But in a stock car, you can get really close, and the way the aerodynamics work in those cars, you can spin someone out just by getting really close to them in the corner, to their bumper, especially the corners of the cars.
Which is the fun game. It's part of the strategy, right? To push one another a little bit.
Yeah. So they're quite different, but of course the route is still racing.
So Danica, racing, winning, what made you, as a child or as an adolescent young lady, to want to win so much? What was part of your education that made you want to be first?
Yeah, it's an interesting question to really phrase, like to ask a question so sort of broad but simple and also precise.
Because you're a winner, obviously, in everything you do. I've observed you in Napa Valley making great wines that we're going to be tasting shortly. And you love, obviously, to always perform at the highest level. So there must be something in that education that you received or from God that makes you want to be that way.
I choose things that are, thank you. I choose things that to do that I'm passionate about.
Yes.
And that I'm truly interested in. And so it was the process of racing that was so fascinating. And of course, the process of winemaking is as well. It's part of falling in love with wine. I don't think there's anyone that could go do proper private tastings and not have a level of respect for the process itself of making wine, because it's really much more, I think, than people realize. So it's about processes. It's about, the journey to the product, the journey to the result. But at the end of the day, the root of what allows me to be able to, that really gets me to a high level, is that I believe it's possible, that I believe that I can be successful. And there's magic in believing.
Well, that's as well a great advice for all our friends with us tonight, is to believe and to, as you said earlier as well, to set yourself goals, and as you achieve them, to go higher and higher, which is very exciting and inspiring. So on that note, give us a few words on how would you describe that within the world of racing, those bubbles coming from Burgundy. Méthode Champenoise, number 69.
Why'd you pick number 69?
Well, I couldn't think of any other number that were more tempting, attractive, and sensual than those. Ooh la la!
Love it. So, va boom. This is wonderful. This is beautiful. I'm going out to dinner tonight, and I feel like I should because I probably shouldn't finish this myself right now. I should take this with me.
Absolutely.
Look, I have definitely drank an entire bottle of champagne myself for sure. But this is great. I love that. To me, I'm feeling like it's pink. It's got some femininity. But I love the masculinity of the black bottle and the black label. Clean bubbles. You can definitely get your mouth full of bubbles, which is fun. But it's clean. This is like a clean finishing, clean finish, which is really nice to me. And I mean, it's wonderful that it's rosé too, because rosé is just all the rage.
Absolutely, and you make rosé as well.
What grapes are in here?
Pinot Noir, Pinot Noir, Pinot Noir, and only Pinot.
It's from Burgundy.
That's it. So, Danica, thank you for those wonderful, kind words. Now, racing is one tranche of your life, which is unbelievable, and you still, I'm sure, you're still very involved in that. But the next phase of your life is an amazing transition. And obviously, we all benefit from your presence and charisma in Napa Valley. Is this those two beautiful children of yours? This is very exciting. So how did it get started, and how did you get that passion for wine?
So it's funny, I actually just told the story the other day when somebody had asked me, I was doing an interview with a guy named Dennis Miller. He's a comedian, but he knew a ton about racing. And so he started talking about Spa and Nürburgring. And anyway, so I told my Spa story, but then during my Spa story, I told him about where I stayed and the accommodation and then the dinner. And so it was this like old house, because again, in like Europe, it's not all like hotels. It's kind of more boutique-y than that. And I told the story about going up to my room. It was like a maze of stairs in this sort of pseudo house up to my room on the top floor. And as I walk towards my room, I've got like there's like dolls and like a dresser, and you open it and it has like doll clothes in it. And there's like a bassinet with dolls. And I was like, this place is so creepy. And I get to my room, and in the bathroom, there's a door, like a low door, like half door, and you open it up and it's the door to nowhere. Like I'm thinking, holy crap, I'm in like a horror house here, and I'm going to have something come up in the middle of the night. So I put a chair in front of that thing in the bathroom, and I went to dinner. And dinner downstairs was just like the most magical experience, though. I remember it was like wild boar, I think was what the food was. And then I had the most amazing bottle of Chablis. And at that point in time, that's like my most memorable bottle of wine I've ever drank, just because it was like a shift for me where I went from like going to the bar and saying, I literally would ask for whatever their sweetest white wine was, which is where everyone starts. And then I had this Chablis, which was so much more dry and so much different than the crappy, like super sweet, whatever that was at any old bar. And I was like, wow. And it like sparked that love for wine where I got really curious and fascinated.
Well, I'm delighted that you got your love at first sight on wine with a Burgundy wine, or Chablis. I'm very honored.
Yeah. So it was a long love affair with Chablis and Sancerre when I lived in England after that for a long time. And so then I came back to the States and I started, drinking more red wine, and as the evolution goes from dry to sweet white wine and then red wine, and then you're like devoted to red wine, and then all of a sudden it comes back around and I drink everything now. So I took a trip to Napa Valley in 2006, and it was actually the morning before I decided and planted this seed and had this dream about having a winery. I went to dinner at French Laundry, and I thought to myself, how am I going to be ready for a wine tasting at 10 a.m. the next morning after I go to French Laundry all night? And I hadn't been there before. So I was like thinking to myself, I mean, at this point in time, this is 2006. I mean, I'm young. I'm in my earlier 20s. I'm like, I'll probably be hammered. And how am I going to be ready to drink at 10 a.m.? Turns out it's a much more elegant experience than that. And you don't just get totally hammered. And it was beautiful. And so I'm standing it was Quintessa, and was driven up to the middle knoll of the property. And there was rose petals leading out to the end of the knoll, because I found out there was a wedding the night before. And the table was set. There was quiches and fruits and the white wine on ice. And it was in November. So it was this beautiful, crisp morning. The fog is like pulling down and back down into San Francisco as I'm looking south. And it's just beautiful. And I've got my white wine at 10 a.m. and I'm sipping, and I'm just like, wow, it would be really cool to have something like this someday. And that was literally the birth of the dream. And that's why it's called, well, I'm drinking that, but I'm holding this. That's why the name is Somnium, because it means dream in Latin.
That's right.
It was that day in November in 2006 where I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have something like this someday? And I then thought to myself, I don't have $50 million. And look, you can spend $50 million in Napa Valley on a vineyard for sure, but you don't have to. And that's what I found out. And so I found a property. I planted the property, and everything is on property for the vineyard. And then I custom crush. So now I custom crush at my winemaker's facility.
That's wonderful. So Danica, tell us, so you find this property, tell us where it is, because I think it's very important for all our friends to know that you're in a very prestigious location.
Well, the idea of finding the property was that it not only had to be good vineyard, but it was like it needed a view, and I wanted a plot, and I was like planning for potentially a house on it at some point in time. And I was like, so it had a lot of criteria, but it's actually in Angwin, which is St. Helena. It's off Deer Park Road. So if you take Deer Park Road all the way up, you come to a really big hairpin turn right where Burgess and Viader are, and you turn up and you look to your left, and that's Somnium. So it turns out that it was, A+ soil with a view. And at that point in time, the poor fires, at that point in time, it had actually had a fire come through, and it's such a steep property. There's all these different aspects to plant that give it some unique characteristics, because it's has such grade and elevation that we get all the exposures as well as a piece on top of the knoll in the middle. It's kind of like a little plateau in the middle.
Yes.
So we get a lot of little microclimates and micro exposures within the property that make for a lot of diversity within our ability to blend the perfect blend for the estate. And so, saw it in 2000. So that dream was in 2006. Saw the property actually at the end of 2008. So as soon as I get a thought in my head, it doesn't take that long to really go for it.
I love that. I love that because you went for it like you did for your racing, like you did for all the different steps of your life. So this is exciting. So you buy it, you plan it, and here you're making wine.
Yeah. So finally, the 14 vintage was for sale in 17. And I bought it at the beginning of 2009. So, look, if you have time and youth is on your side, which it was for me, you can do it in a slower way where you also have control of the quality and control of everything from the property to the rootstock to the, clones. Like all of that stuff is really a really nice thing to be a part of, to plant what it is that you want, and the varietals, of course. So it's been really, really cool.
My baby. And I'm amazed is you find yourself another Frenchman besides me to make the wine with, Julien. So this is really exciting.
Well, I don't say his name like that, but that's him, Julien Fayard. How should I say it? What would make me sound more French?
Well, I think you just did it so well. But there's, but so I just poured, obviously, the red label, which I adore. And I think besides the hill, the dream, the racing, the road, really represents so well who you are. So as I'm the one enjoying it, why don't you describe this first wine that, by the way, for everybody listening, you could buy, obviously, Somnium directly with Danica, or we have them at the Oakville Wine Merchant as well. We're making a great offer on those two wines. So everybody can have access to those fabulous bottles of wine as well. So we're very excited. So Danica, give us a little description of the first wine I'm trying.
So you have the 15, right?
Correct.
Yeah. 15's my favorite. 15's my favorite year. A lot of people, there's always a big debate between 15 and 16. But for me, 15, hang on. You're drinking, sorry. You're drinking the red label. You're drinking red label. Hang on. Sorry.
I'm going for the 2018 red label.
My babies were birthed in different orders. So the red label is more new for us. So we wanted to make a red that was still super beautiful, but a little bit more priced for access, because yes, the estate's 185, and so we wanted to make something that's more reachable. So it's a lot of estate. That's kind of the thing. It's actually still a lot of estate wine. We take the best of the best from the estate, and of course make the white label estate. But we still have more grapes from the property, so we use a majority of all still estate grapes, but we do blend in a couple of others that help to mellow the wine and balance it out and make it more ready to drink. I mean, with some of these big estate wines, like obviously you can keep it in your cellar for 10, 20, 30 years and it holds its integrity. And in some cases you do want to wait for a while. Like some of my older wines are more beautiful now than they were before. So, this is something that's more approachable, more ready to drink right away. So it's the newest to the collection is the red label. And some people like the red label better. And then that's the beautiful thing about wine is that, it's up for interpretation, what your taste is and, what you taste in the wine. So with the red label, it should open up pretty quickly and it should be ready to drink. It should feel balanced. It shouldn't be offensive anywhere throughout. Even if it's young, it shouldn't have too much tannin. It should be ready to drink and easy. And the fruit is, and everything's balanced. The point is to balance it. Like for me with wine, it's so much about texture with me. I'm actually not that good at identifying, like I'm not drinking it thinking blackberry and fresh cut rubber hose and, charred bell pepper and that isn't my zone, but texture for me is really important. Whenever I go in to ask for wine from a som or someone that's helping me choose, because I love to try new one, my most important element to asking for wine is that I ask for a wine that delivers quality over quantity of tannins. Because I like it to be like soft and feminine and velvety. I like my tongue to slip on the roof of my mouth like it's just made of silk. So
you're making us very excited. I'm vibrating of excitement.
69.
And I got to say, the wine for all of you, dear friends listening with us, deliver exactly what Danica said. And it has as well, and congratulations, Julien, for doing such a great job with Danica. It delivers everything you've said and more. And it's a 2018, which I'm very excited to see, already so balanced, as you said, and well integrated. So well done.
Thank you.
Danica, we'll go back to wine in a moment, but you have as well, and I would love for you to share your passion for health, your passion for organic. Your vineyard as well is organically farmed, which
yes,
big fan of. And finally, health, nutrition, yoga. Tell us about all that, because obviously you are very fit, physically and mentally. So give us all that you do in that world.
Thank you. there's a lot of aspects to health. It's not just necessarily what I consume, but it's also what I consume from my mind, the thoughts I choose to think, how I populate my mind. Of course, what I do with my body, which is, yes, yoga, but it's also other forms, other modalities of fitness too. It could be hiking, and getting out in nature is a huge aspect for wellness. I mean, I have yet to meet myself or anyone that can go in nature and not think to themselves, oh, wow, I feel better. I don't think nature's ever made anyone feel worse. So nature's a big deal. But yeah, cooking, I love to cook. So I learned how to cook a long time ago. I actually learned how to cook when I lived in England, because I wanted to eat more healthy, and I wanted to lose weight and look better. And the best way to do that is to learn how to cook, because then not only does that mean that you're going to cook at home more often, but then when you go to a restaurant, you're so much more empowered to know how things are prepared or how to ask for them to be prepared, that you know you can take care of yourself better. And there are so many things that don't reduce flavor or enjoyment of the meal, but make things healthier. Like, you can really get used to having ODing on salt if you eat out too much, that when you eat at home, you won't like it. But then if you do it vice versa and you eat at home, you have a much better sort of like monitor system for what's going on. But I love to eat healthy. I love to work out. I love to get out in nature. I think animals are a huge part of that. I have 2 dogs, and I think animals are just wonderful companions. So
what kind of dogs do you have?
I have a miniature Siberian Husky and a Belgian Malinois. Here, I'll see if I can pull. I've got way too many text messages. Let's see if I can have a. You can kind of see them. Hang on, let me see if I can lock my screen. Oh, there they are.
Oh, so cute. Adorable.
Yeah,
adorable.
in case the time matters.
Now, Danica, besides all that, you have as well an incredible Instagram. I want to commend you for that.
Thanks.
And you have yourself a great show called Pretty Intense.
Yeah. And so, yeah, thank you for reminding me of what
because it's great and everybody should watch it.
Well, I love talking, and I love talking to people, and I love learning. And so I was just laughing about this earlier, that I wake up in the morning, I do a little bit of meditation, I get my coffee because that's critical, and then I start consuming information. So I start listening to podcasts or watching YouTube videos. I love documentaries. I just love expanding my mind. So I realized that having a podcast is doing all that. So now, sometimes I learn about something and then I say I want to interview them. And sometimes I get an interview and then I learn about them for the show. But no matter what, I'm continuing to expand my mind and I'm continuing to learn. And I truly love that. So the show is really, really fun for me. I interview everybody from scientists and doctors to influencers, comedians, actors, musicians, you name it. I go across the board because everybody has a story. Everybody has. You've really right. And in talking to people and interviewing, everybody has a story.
Isn't it fun? It's the best. So on that note, as you describe this next wine, which is the estate,
yeah,
I'd like to ask you a double question in one, of course. One of your dreams was to become a winner in racing, which you have. Great success. Another one was to go to the heights of Napa Valley and create an amazing wine and have a great estate. You have that.
Oh,
what is your next dream, if we may ask?
Oh, goodness, my next dream. It's a little bit broad, but it's kind of the purpose of so much of what I do, and especially with the podcast, which is what I've been so busy with. And that's to really wake people up, but wake people up in an empowered way to their potential, their ability to manifest their dreams and their own happiness. Like
Yes.
we have more control and power over our reality than we realize. And so sometimes you have to jolt people by exposing them to things about the way that the world works that they would have never thought about. Like I'm interviewing someone that made the documentary called Unacknowledged and Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. So sometimes you're doing it through extraterrestrial exposure. Sometimes you're doing it through quantum physics. Sometimes you're doing it through miraculous stories by someone that's now accomplished so much and become well known for it, whether it be something that they're good at or something that they kind of came across that they had to then talk about. So yeah, I guess it would be around the idea of waking people up to their own power.
Wow. Woo! This is an amazing dream and objective. And I'm sure you're doing it through Pretty Intense. And there's a book attached to it, right?
Yeah. As I look over on my bookshelf.
Tell us about that.
Well, that came out a couple of years ago, and that's kind of, Pretty Intense was a book that I dreamt up, and it included mind, body, and spirit, and so, or mind, body, and food. So the first part of the book is on your mind and just how to, it's very entry level to the power of your mind. And getting your mind right so that then you're able to prepare yourself to have the discipline to learn how to eat better and why you're doing it. And then to also have the mental strength to deal with a difficult workout. And then by nature, getting stronger, not only in the gym, but then the rest of your life. There's a trickle down effect from anything that you do that's empowering for yourself has an ability to sort of spread out and trickle down into other areas. And so really it's like a practice in learning how to believe in yourself at a higher level. And so that book came out a couple of years ago, and then the podcast came the year after.
Well, congratulations. And we could still get the book on your website as well.
Yeah, it's called Pretty Intense. Yep. I'm on the front with abs. Like, I don't have them right now, but well, maybe a little bit, but.
Well, I could see a few. So finally, I'm tasting the estate. This is exceptional. So we had the 2018.
Yep.
Now this is your estate 2015.
Yep.
A few words on that, please.
Yep. So 2015 is my favorite year so far. There's always a big debate between the 15 and 16, what you like better. For me, since I like old world wine a little bit better, I love it when a wine has a little earthiness to it, and the fruit is a little bit more mellow, but there's sort of like, I love French. Like, I love Bordeaux style wine. I love French wine. And so I like an old world mouth on my wine. And so the 16 is a little bit fruitier and more.
I have an old world mouth. You're talking to Frenchmen. This is very tempting.
Oh, well, 69. So I just love when they're a little bit more earthy. And so the 16 is a little bit more fruit forward. So it's a little fruitier. And it's a little bit more representative of Napa Valley. To me, the 15 pulls a little bit more of an old world sort of flavor.
And I'm a big fan. And what is so exciting is Walter from the Oakville Wine Merchant has those two wines. So everybody who is willing to get the wines, which I hope everyone with us today, get the 18, the red label, and get the Estate 2015. It's magical. And as I have too, an old and new world mouth, I would say both are fantastic, but the 2015 is amazing. Now, Danica, sadly, it's our last question, but a big one.
Okay.
You're a big inspiration, indeed, to so many, and not only obviously to the racing world, to the wine world, to all the ladies out there who are really looking up to you. I'd love for you to send a message to everyone. Early 2021, it's an exciting year. You're an overachiever. You're a phenomenal personality. You're extremely charming, which allows you to convey messages so well. So the floor is yours. Send the message to the world.
Thank you for that opportunity. The thing that comes to mind first that's been I've been talking a little bit about lately is the idea of accountability. And
Yes.
and of course, it sort of comes as a parallel to the power of, you have your power over your reality. But I think accountability is the first step to really unlocking more potential. And I've been doing that. So this is a self practice as well. But I think just because 2020 ended and we're in 2021, the second turning over in the year being different does not mean that problems are gone. It does not mean that all of a sudden life goes back to normal. And so I would say that, accountability is something that I think everybody needs to have a look at, including myself, as to where we can be more accountable and understand that your life is happening for you and not to you. And everything in your reality is a reflection. This is a big concept, but we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. We can only see ourselves in situations, which is why when someone says, oh, I don't like this about myself, and you're like, I don't even see that. It's because we don't have that in us, that we don't see that in them. And so the way that I guess I'm going to pull this into wine is that the purpose for Somnium for me has always been to connect. So with everything I've ever done, there's always a really long-term goal. It's not some like, I want to make money or I want to have my wine in a bottle. If my only goal was to make wine, I'd be done. So the purpose of Somnium is to encourage people to connect. And you look at any research of, let's say, the blue zones in the world where people have the longest life expectancy, community is what is the most prevalent in all of the blue zones. And so taking this wine and being really present with the wine and most importantly, the company and the community around you. And so on the back of the label, it says, it's like present as in you are here. And like the red dot is like you are here. So it's kind of that Ram Dass feel of like, be here now. And share it in community and share it with people you love and put your phone away and stop gramming stuff and whatever else and drink the wine and really connect and remember how to speak to people and also learn, right? We learn from each other and I'm scared for the idea that we won't know how to communicate face to face as well as we used to because of so much technology. So put everything aside, grab your friends and a couple bottles of wine, get a little drunk and have a little fun.
I love it. Well, be present is a fabulous conclusion to our wonderful time together and live the present time and give time to be present. So Danica, we want to thank you immensely. We are very admirative of what you do in every part of your life. Congratulations. Welcome to Napa Valley. We're delighted that you're making such fabulous wines as well, that you're such a great inspiration.
Thank you.
And that you live life pretty intensely.
That's for sure.
To you. And see you soon in Napa.
How do I say bye? Say au revoir. Au revoir. Au revoir.
Au revoir.